go ahead and do a how-to on changing the brake pads on your 350. We're gonna go ahead and check out these Tusk brake pads and see how they are. They have really good reviews. Everything else that I've used that's Tusk related is really good quality. So hopefully these do well. I've never tried the Tusk before though. They don't provide these for the CRF or the DR. So hopefully they perform really well and they last really long. Changing your brake pads is a super simple task. Anybody can do it, but it's highly important that you periodically check your brake pads front and rear, as well as also checking your rotors. I've had brake pads last me as little as 2 rides. Check your brake pads. Your brakes are shot. You're not gonna stop. Let's dive into it. Please excuse my attire for today's video. I almost forgot to mention Happy New Year's, everybody. Merry Christmas. Christmas is over. So this is a very simple task to do. And I'll bring you guys in closer in just a moment here. Show you what I'm looking at. The KTMs are super easy. Most bikes are super easy to replace your brake pads on. KTM is super easy. Pop a couple cotter pins out, slide the pin out, brake pads come right out. Check the leaf springs inside the caliper, things like that. Make sure they're not all gummed up. We got the bike on a center stand now, as you can see. The rear tire moves freely. Not sure if you guys can actually see the wear on the brake pads here, but these brake pads are pretty gnarly. So we have 2 cotter pins, one on the back of the caliper, one on the front of the caliper. We're gonna go ahead and pop these out. Very simple to take out. Grab yourself a needle nose pair of pliers, anything like that, and just pull right out. And as you can see, that's what they look like. This is right up against the caliper housing. Slide it right up. Same exact thing. Just remember to slide it with the little hump towards the front of the bike. Both of those cotter pins are exactly identical too, so it doesn't matter which one you put where. Okay, so these slide pins come out pretty easily, as you can see, back and forth, no problem. But when you get it to this point, if you're not like me and you don't want to grab it with a pair of pliers, get yourself an Allen key that's smaller than the slide pin itself in the hole, and you just slide that back like so. Push it right out. And then from there, I usually like to take a pad out first, wiggle it out. These pads are pretty badly gone, so they're a little stuck in there. As you can see, everything's pretty caked up. So this is what you want to clean, check, and inspect. Let's go ahead and take the other side out, and then your pads are out. Look at the wear on these pads. Had a little bit of life left, but really not much. These are the OEM pads too. These are the OEM Brembo pads. I've put quite a bit of riding on these since I've had the 350, so hopefully the Tusks last just as long. We're gonna take our slide pin out all the way. You wanna go ahead and clean up all your hardware, and you wanna inspect your caliper. Okay, so the next step is we wanna go ahead and crack open the rear brake reservoir. Okay, so now with that off, we're gonna go ahead and move back to the rear caliper. We're gonna get the piston pushed back in. Just make sure when your cap is off, you do not pump your brakes, because if you do that, you will start to suck air in the system. I'm pushing it in right now, 2 fingers, no problem. And I'm watching my reservoir up there just to make sure it's not bubbling up into the threads. And the piston's back in. Now is the time for you to just go ahead and just inspect and do a quick little wipe on the inside before you put the leaf spring back in. Get yourself a little popsicle stick, wet paper towel, anything like that. Wipe around in there. Pretty decent amount of gunk that comes out of there. When you guys are at this stage right here, go ahead and grab your caliper and make sure it slides like this freely, okay? If your caliper does not move like this freely, doesn't move nice and smooth, feels, chunky or anything like that, or once, you can move it a little and it sticks, see how mine's going back? It's not gonna bounce all the way back, but it's going back, as you can see. You're gonna wanna take these off here, these nuts, slide these boots, slide the caliper itself off, and you're gonna wanna clean and re-grease those slide pins right there. Now there should be one at the top and one right here on the back. You have a leaf spring here and you have a sliding plate. Sliding plates on the back, that didn't come out. You still wanna inspect it, make sure it's seated in there properly, and you have the leaf spring right here. This is what popped out with the pads because it was all gunked up. Take your pin, a little bit of grease on it. Grease it, don't grease it, totally up to you. Slide that all the way through. Take your 2 cotter pins, remember with the triangle shape to the front, bump out to the front, whatever you want to call it. Go ahead and drop that in place. Okay, so now your pads are in, your pin is in, your cotter pins are in. We're gonna go ahead and close our brake reservoir, pump our brake pedal. We're gonna go ahead and slide this down in like so. Brake fluid's nice and clean. And just watch it for a second. Make sure you're not gonna overflow, which I might actually. Just a little. What I do is I get myself a clean rag. This is a clean rag I just got. I'm just gonna go ahead and just absorb just a smidge out of there. Put the tip of the rag in. Just to absorb a little bit. As you can see, my brake fluid's still nice and clean. That should be perfect. So now that we have the rear brake reservoir cap reinstalled, we're going to go ahead and pump the brake pedal just a couple times. Spin your wheel just a few times. I like to do this. Hit it once or twice more. At this point, you want to go ahead and take a light and just double check your brake fluid level. All right, well, as you guys can see, that's super easy. Super simple task to do. Anybody can do it. Quick rundown, it's literally 2 cotter pins and a slide pin. That's it. That's how you remove your brake pads. That's how you reinstall your brake pads. Just go through and make sure you clean the caliper out, clean the leaf springs off, make sure your caliper's sliding back and forth and you don't need to grease up and clean the other 2 slide pins on the caliper itself. Other than that though, you're good to go. Your first ride out, make sure you're easy on the brakes for the first 15 minutes or something like that. And your braking performance might not feel 100% for your first 15 minutes out there. You want to break your pads in, you want to seat them in properly to your rotor. Don't be too aggressive on them because you'll glaze them. And if you glaze your pads, meaning heavy braking and things like that, heat them up, heavy braking for the first 15 minutes, you could take the chance of ruining your pads. They're never going to brake right. So take it easy on them for the first 15 minutes, maybe first mile of riding, do some light braking, things like that, and then you're going to be set. You're going to be good to go. Your braking's going to be amazing. Catch everybody on the next one. Adventure Zach is out. Peace.